Good afternoon, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to do a bit of real service on my PENN FATHOM 2 SDs. When I went fishing the other night, it was making a bit of a noise, the bearing sounds a bit rough, but also the lever that puts the spool into free spool for casting, that was loose. So I'll just show you, so you can see the lever's loose. I was surprised it lasted the session, but it did. So today I'm going to go through what I'll do on the real maintenance and try and sort out that issue. I'm by all means no expert, so I may be doing things wrong, but I've been doing my own reels now for years and years and I've never had a problem with them. So I'm going to start off taking off the end plate where the ratchet is. Slide the spool out, slide the shaft out of the spool. What you've got to be careful of is the end piece where the ratchet goes there. That's plastic, that's just a push fit, so you need to tease that off carefully. You don't want to break it. It's only sealed on by 3 tabs. That just pulls off. You can see there you've got 4 little lugs that connect into the 4 little lugs on the side of the spool. Now I'll just pop that bearing out. I'll place that in the pot, ready to put some solvent in. Now on the other end of the spool, you've got a little tiny clip in there holding the bearing in. Put your screwdriver in there, hold your thumb across the top of it, because these can go flying out. That's it. And that just comes out like that. I use a spindle or the spool again just to push that bearing out. Place that in there. Also, that little washer come out there, that was from the other end of the spool. I'll place that there ready so I know where everything goes. I like to put everything in the order of the side it's come out. You see, it's all quite nice and clean. There's not a lot of grease on there. I thought there'd be a little bit more grease in there than that. I'll just get a bit of blue tissue. Everything can wipe over. Just make sure everything's nice and tight. Obviously, I don't want it to be over tight. I just want to make sure it's not gonna come apart on the cast. Now what I'll do is get a little bit of grease, and I'll just put some grease on the spring and just around the area where the magnet slides. It's a little bit of grease on your finger, pop that in there like so. I'll put a little bit around the spring and the ratchet clicker. Also what I'll do is I'll put a little bit of oil inside the the bush on the end of the spool where the spindle goes. I like to use a little syringe, so it's easy to put your droplets in how much you want. Pop that to one side, and I'll put just one small drop inside there. I'll clean off that little bit of excess that I've spilt. And that's that end done. Put a little bit of solvent cleaner in there to help clean the bearings. That's just a little bit of degreaser. I'm going to let the bearings soak in there for a little while. Now I'll make a start on the other end of the reel. I'll start by undoing the screw on the end of the handle, which is it's like a retaining screw. Then I'll use the tool that you get with the reel to take the handle off. Go and try and keep everything in order. You take it out. It makes it so much easier when you put it back together then. There's the little clicker piece, which is you hear when you undo your star drag. Then I'll take off the spool float. You have to be careful because in the end of there, I don't think you can see it, right in the centre there, there's like a little spacer where the shaft fits on. That's where the end of the shaft goes through. Now I'll start by undoing the 3 screws on the end. Then off that end pops. Now we can see the internals of the reel, we can see where my lever was loose. And I'm hoping it's just that flat-headed screw there's come undone. Don't want to over tighten it, just tighten it down, just till you feel it go tight and give it a little tweak on it. Now that's a relief. Anything more serious than I thought. Now I'll start by undoing the 2 screws at the bottom. is I'll pop those back in. I like to try and do everything in an order, just so it makes it a little bit easier putting it back together. And now you've got the clutch mechanism, it's all inside here. So I'll just pull out the shaft from the middle, it's got a little bearing on the end of it. So that's the gearing out that contains all the drag washers. That part there should be on top. And you've got the bearing inside there, which I've got a feeling is going to be a little bit difficult to get out. I'll have a go. I don't want to try too hard because I don't want to lose the spring. Now, I'm unable to get the little clip out that's inside there holding it. So what I'll do is I'll just put a little tiny drop of oil in now while it's in place. Literally 2 dropfuls and that's enough. Then I'll put a little bit of grease on the gear inside there. I'll undo these 2 screws to take off the pinion. And that slides off and shows you the last bearing on the inside of the spool. What I'll do is, I'm not going to take that bearing out either. I'll just put a couple of little drops of oil in there. And that's where the bearing goes off the end of the spool. What I'll do is I'll just build this end back up. I'll clean off the pinion gear. Make sure there's no debris or any too much rubbish grease left in it. Then I'll put a nice little coating of grease around there. Then I'll slide it back into place. Going down over tight, you'll feel them. They'll go down, and they'll just bite. I'll sort of give another little nip after they've just bit. Again, I'll just tighten the last one up, tighten it down. Make sure the spring's nice and central and just give it another little dip after it's tight, and that's it. You don't need to over tighten them, you know. Now that's that end all done. What I'll do is I'll focus on the drag mechanism now. So I'll take the washer off the end. Then I'll take out the carbon washer, which is part of the drag system. Then there's another washer. Another carbon washer. Another metal washer. Carbon washer and a final metal washer. Final carbon washer. So I've got them all laid out now in order they come out in the reel. So what I'll do is I'll just give the gear a clean. Now what I'll do is I'll clean all the excess grease off the drag washers and I'll re-grease those. So now I've re-greased those, I'll take the housing, put in the sleeve that goes in the middle, where everything places over the top of, and I'll re-grease the drag washers and I'll place them back in. You don't need loads, just a light coating over both surfaces, and that can drop in. And place a washer over it as well. And that is that all done. Now I'll replace that back inside the reel. That back inside. Place the washers back on top and slide the handle back through the reel. I will place a little bit of grease on this gearing around the top here. A little bit of oil. The oil for that bearing is already inside there. So now let's put a little bit of grease around the reel, around the gearing. I'm not putting loads on, just enough to coat the gears. Now wipe all the grease off your hands. So now just attach the end of the side plate back on. Careful not to over tighten, just a gentle nip is all they need. They don't need a lot. Then I'll replace the spool cage onto the side plate. Replace all the screws. To a gentle nip. What I'll do is now the bearings have had a good clean, I'll get these taken out. Let all the cleaning fluid evaporate out of the bearing. Just put a fresh bit of tissue down so it'll absorb. So while they're drying off, I'll finish putting the side plate back on. I'll start off with the spool float. And I'll start rebuilding the handle. In the reverse order I took it off, because I've laid them out in the order I took everything off, I know which way they go back on. You can hear the clicker going back into the star drag there. Give it a gentle nip up with the tool, making sure the hole for the screw lines up with one of the recesses in the little bolt on the end. And that's the end of the reel bolted up. I'm still waiting for the bearings to dry. While they're drying, what I'll do is I'll go over to the sink and I'll just give this little bit of corrosion a wash out with my toothbrush. So I'll get back to you once I've cleaned that. I've just gave that a little clean. I know I should have ideally done that before I put it back together, but I forgot. So I'll just give it a little clean out. There's a little bit of corrosion in there, nothing too serious. So now I can start rebuilding the spool end. What I'll do is, with the bearings, I'll just give each bearing a couple of drops of oil. Then I'll give that a minute or so to just let it soak through. Now I could concentrate on building the spool up. So on the spool, pop bearing in the end, a little gear inside with the little clip. With these clips, be a bit careful, just make sure you keep your thumb over it because they have a tendency to go flying. That's it, that's that one popped in. So just pop the little washer in. Pop the last bearing in, and then that's the clicker for the ratchet. Just make sure your little lugs line up with the little grooves on the side of the spool. Give it a gentle push into place, and that's that done. And push the spool back into the reel. And replace the end plate. Put the final 3 screws back in. Give them gentle tighten up. Make sure you don't over tighten them, because if you do get a bit of solder in them, they can be really hard to undo. That's it. That's it, all bolted back together. Drag works all nice. What I'll do is I'll set up the spool float, so I'll put in a free spool. Ideally what you want is you want a little tiny bit of play on the spool side to side. So I'll undo the float just till I get the smallest amount of play, and then I'll put the magnets where I want them. I always have them about middle. That's it, the spool spins lovely now. Have it on the less, far too quick. That's it, all set up now for another year. What I'll do is I've got one more to do now. I'll get that one done and I'm ready for another year ahead. I hope this has been a bit of good information for you. It's not as hard as what you'd think to strip down a reel and put it back together. Just make sure you take your time, put things in the correct order when you put them down, and have all the tools ready to hand.